Local university meets local industry. This webinar duration is 90 minutes, and approximately the first hour we'll hear from each of our speakers, and that will then be followed by a panel discussion with the webinar closing at around 12 noon. So the webinar is being recorded and will be carried on public platforms after today's event. There is a Q&A box facility at the bottom of your screens, and there you can send your comments or queries, and we'll try to get to as many of them during the panel discussion section towards the latter end of the webinar. There's also a public chat box which is available during the course of the webinar also. So I want to formally welcome our speakers, Deputy Simon Harris, TD Minister for Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science, due to join us very shortly. I want to welcome Professor Ciarán Catháin, President of AIT. I want to welcome Carmel, Owens, CEO of Sidero, Dr. Niall, Seery, Director, Technological University Project AIT, LIT Consortium. You're all very welcome indeed. And furthermore, I want to welcome our panelists who will be later on, or taking part later on in our panel discussion. I want to welcome Ken Whitelaw, Regional Manager, IDA, James Maloney, Senior Regional Development Executive with Enterprise Ireland, and Geoghegan, President of Mullingar Chamber of Commerce. You're all very welcome. So let's get started, and I now hand you over to our CEO of Athlone Chamber of Commerce, Jerry McInerney, to introduce our first speaker.
Thank you, Alan. Our first speaker this morning is Professor Ciarán Catháin. Ciarán has been president of AIT since 2000. He is a graduate of Trinity College. Ciarán is committed to the value of regional development and has championed Midlands for commercial, social and cultural development on an ongoing basis. Professor Ciarán has presided over the instrumental development of the Institute over the past 20 years, transforming it from a fledgling regional technical college to Ireland's leading Institute of Technology. I'd like to welcome Ciarán.
Thanks, Jerry, and thank you all for the invitation and for the Chamber for hosting the webinar today. I think it's great for us, another time for us to be able to meet and to explain to you where we are, the impact that the new university will have on this region, but also on the Midwest region as well, as we move towards the TU opening its doors on the 1st of October this year. I mean, from AIT, from the fledgling beginning of 50 years ago, when we opened as an RTC with 60 students in it, to where we are today with 6,000 students here now on the campus. We have a further 2,000 students registered on AIT programs in China, approved by the Ministry of Education in China, and they feed into us as well. And on the other side of that as well, we also have another 1,600 students who are working with us online through our Springboard Board programs, which we might talk about as we get into the discussion. But it has been a great 50 years for Athlone in terms of where we are now to where we were 50 years ago. And it's interesting to note, when they built the RTCs 50 years ago, they designed the buildings in a way that they could be converted back for IDA to use for advanced factories. So I think we've come a long way and have proven our worth in terms of what we can contribute both educationally, but socially and economically to the region. And we're now, as I said, we're on the cusp of becoming Ireland's third technological university, serving the Midlands and Midwest. And I think, from our perspective, we have got great support right across the region from a lot of the people who are on the call today, but also from all of the agencies, and indeed from the Minister and his officials in the department and his predecessor, Mary Mitchell O'Connor, who I met around this time 2 years ago when we went into her, myself and Niall and Vincent and Terry from the Limerick side, and we said to her we wanted to come together as a new consortia. We felt that we could deliver a TU in 2 years, and we had a discussion with her, and I think there was certainly an openness and a huge support to us. I think there may have been skeptical to think that we could have delivered this in 2 years, considering some of our colleagues have been working on it for 9 and 10 years. But we have proven that with the way, with the imagination and with the leadership and the drive to do it, we have done it. When you think we put in our application 13 months after we formally started the process, we had the international panel review here in February of this year, and the Minister then made his announcement in early May with the doors opening for the new TU on the 1st of October. It just shows you where there is a will, one can deliver it. But I also want to thank all of our colleagues, both here and in Limerick, for the huge work that they've put in terms of getting the application ready, but also then being able to defend that application and deliver on what needed to be done to make sure that we got through the process. And I think now that we have got the TU, what does that mean? What will be the impact on the region? Well, if you look at the region that we will be serving, you know, we're talking about the Midlands, which will embrace, you know, Clare, Limerick, Tipperary, North and South, the Midlands region of Longford, Westmeath, Offaly and Laois, including Athlone, also including, of course, Roscommon and East Galway, where we serve. We're talking about a region of just short of 1 million, of just short of 900,000, comprising of about 500,000 in the Midwest and just short of about 400,000 when you look at around the extended Midlands, which for us comprises probably about 17% of the overall population in Ireland, of that 4.8%. And, you know, the critical piece for us has always been around that access, the access to higher education, and how we can support the people in the region to upskill, to reskill, and get them into higher education. And for a lot of them, and a lot of the students coming into Athlone, and indeed in Limerick, and indeed that will come into the new TU in October, they will be first generation coming into a higher education institution. And therefore we have, you know, a responsibility to ensure that we can get them through. The new TU will also have a very clear commitment to balanced regional development. And we believe that this is critical in terms of where we want to go. We want to be able to be a counterbalance to Dublin on the east and to Galway on the west, and indeed down to Munster as well, so that we can counterbalance that and really develop the region and make sure that we can deliver for it. We also have a presence currently from the Athlone side in Mullingar, in Tullamore and Portlaoise through our learning gates. And we would hope that those learning gates, as we develop and evolve at the TU, will become more important and more strategic to us in terms of where we want to take the technological university. But if you look at what is our ambition in terms of industry and in terms of the regional development, well, I mean, everybody around the table knows that we have a very much a proven track record of how we work with industry, how we engage with industry, how agile we have been in terms of responding to the needs of the industry in the region. And of course, that will be critical as we move forward. The agility that we have developed and being able to respond quickly to industry will be critical as we move into the next phase of the TU development. Mind you, we will have a broader remit, but we will also be able to ensure that the synergies between the campus in Athlone and Limerick, the two main campuses, and Thurles and Carmel and Ennis, will also be at the disposal of the region. We will be able to drive much more in terms of the economic development and the social development of the region. But we'll also be able to use the expertise on all of those campuses that will assist us, particularly in the R&D space, and particularly being able to support and help SMEs and, of course, the FDI investment by linking opportunities in the knowledge creation and innovation space that we have. The TUS Midlands Midwest, we believe, is uniquely positioned to support the endeavours of local industry and indeed other key stakeholders. And our emphasis too in terms of the whole placement of all of our programs has also been instrumental in producing that pipeline of graduates in a number of areas, including the biopharma, medtech, polymer engineering, and indeed software and ICT. And we know when the IDA bring an itinerary in, one of the big questions they ask us is around, you know, will we have a pipeline of graduates readily available for them? Will they have the skill sets that we'll need? And we always have to respond to that and to say what we can do for them. And in terms of the agility that we have to be able to look at particular programs so that we can help them in any way we can. I mean, one of the other critical things as we see going forward for the new TU is around creating that sticky region. You know, for too long here in the Midlands and in the Midwest, but more particularly here in the Midlands, is we lose a huge number of talent to Dublin and to the West. So when they finish school here in the Midlands, particularly here in Athlone and around us, you know, where they drive past the door of the institute and they go to Dublin and they go to Cork, it's very hard then to get them back into the region. Now that we have this university here on the doorstep, you know, people need then to change and see the perspective and the potential that the university has, and indeed to encourage their children that come into the new university, and then once they come in, and we can hold them here, then we have that whole ability to create that sticky region, to keep them here so that when they graduate, they want to stay in the region and work in it. And I think too, the fact that we have the university will help in terms of an IDA perspective, in terms of looking at bringing in inward investment. We also want to make sure that we can continue to collaborate with the skills unit too, in terms of upskilling and reskilling within the region. We want to be able to drive the Midlands 2040 agenda collectively, to leverage objectives for the region as set under the National Development Plan for 2040. And if one looks at the two of them in terms of just economic terms, the economic contribution that the two institutions make to the region is around 418 million in economic output, and while we support about 827 jobs. And that whole fostering of the symbiotic relationship with our partners across the region to support knowledge creation, move beyond state of the art, and ensure strategic advantage for our region. And if you look even at Springboard in terms of working and providing training for the region, in the last 3 years, AIT alone has pulled in 12 million in Springboard, and we have put through Springboard courses nearly 3,000 people in the region. What is interesting, when we looked at the last year's cohort of 1,600 students, we found while 70% of them were coming from the region, we were now actually moving right across the country. And I think every county in Ireland was represented on some of those Springboard programs in last year. And for next year, and this year's one from September, again, we've been very successful in pulling about 4.4 million out of it. So we're pulling in around 9 and 10% annually from that overall Springboard into the Midlands. And what that is allowing us to do is to respond to the skill needs of the region. And these are the needs that come through the skills regional fora, and where the industry are telling us what they need, and we put the programs together for them. And I think it has been hugely successful, and we hope to be able to continue to deliver in that format through into the TU. And I think it's important to state, like for us, we want to make sure that we stay regionally focused. We need to stay agile so that we can respond very clearly to the needs of the industry. And I think we have, as an institute over 50 years, the experience that we've got, we have been able certainly to do that. As a TU, we have an ambition to increase the FDI investment in the region, to assist with growing number of FDI and M&E ecosystem. The Midlands is a hub for life science, tech and global business providers. We have a young, skilled and engaged labour force. In fact, the region's growth engine, the Midlands, is home to a very young demographic, and largely under 35-year-old, 48% within 60 minutes drive of Athlone, and 53% for Athlone, surpassing the national average of 47%. So when you actually look at that population trend for business and for indeed for AIT, it's very significant that we can keep them here in the region, and go back to that sticky region again, of being able to keep them and get them into the region. Then that augurs well really for us all in terms of what we need going forward into the future. And so the domestic and international enterprises who come and capitalize, a lot of them are using a lot of the research and development here in AIT in terms of our BRI, our MRI and the SRI, and APT and Command, which are the gateway centres. And during 2020, in the midst, I would say, of the global pandemic, APT and Command brought in over 2 million in research funding. 800,000 of this was from industry, which accounts for 28% of the overall industry contribution to the full gateway network of 16 over that period. And in terms of innovation partnerships in 2020, AIT actually is joint second with Trinity College in Dublin. So it shows that we can box very clever and box above our weight in terms of what we're doing and delivering for Ireland, both here in the Midlands, but also in the broader context of the Irish economy. So the Athlone campus, in our view, will be central to that whole area of continuous development. We are due to get a new STEM building, which we hope to be starting later this year or early into 2022. That will provide an additional 1,000 places for students, which will allow us really to grow, because at the moment we're capped somewhat in terms of the capacity that we can take into those STEM areas. But that additional 1,000 will allow us to grow significantly over the next 5 years. The master plan that we have developed for the campus is to open it and to connect much more of the campus into the town. And we will be looking then for significant investment over the next 5 to 10 years. But a part of that too, and I think, and while the minister's here now, I can get the plug in around that as well, is around ensuring that we have the facility to borrow. As a new university at the moment, we don't have that facility to borrow. So therefore we can't go to the European Investment Bank and get it borrowing at very competitive rates so that we can build some of the infrastructure that we will need, that we are constantly depending on the state to be able to do that for us. And I think that is something that will have to change. We know we've been engaging with the department and the officials for many years on this, but now as we move into the university space, we need to make sure that we have buildings that are fit for it, but also that will be able to transfer and really develop the dynamic that we want to achieve as a technological university. When we met the Minister, Mary Mitchell O'Connor, 2 years ago, and when we met Minister Harris earlier this year, what we have said to him all along, we will give you proof of concept of a technological university. And that's what we want to do, and that's what we want to achieve. And in terms of doing that, there are certain things we need to do. The infrastructure will be part one of it. We also, as you know, may know, we're developing or looking to develop the Midlands Technology Campus. It's a 1.7 hectare site that AIT have that is sitting on the IDA Park beside us here. And our intention is to build that in so that can be used by industry to come in, upscale or rescale, take space in it, work with our researchers, work with all of the students that are here on certain projects so that we can provide something for you back into the region. And I think it's something that we will be making sure in terms of, we have now world-class researchers on the campus here who are working and delivering for industry and indeed just in terms of the whole higher education space, and have been doing that for many years. Now we really need to put in more of that infrastructure to allow us to really to continue to develop into that space in terms of education, the research, technology and business innovation, much more on the collaboration R&D, including co-location of industry enterprise and AIT and researchers. The industry enterprise access to specialist equipment and facilities. And again, this year we got about 2 million from Enterprise Ireland to support that specialist equipment. The ongoing training and skill development for industry and enterprise, which I talked about, particularly through the Springboard case. The Indigenous and FDI technology startups and supporting that through our MERC. And indeed, at the moment, we're going to extend the MERC by about 50%. So we will have more capacity for startups in that high tech space, and testing ground then for new technologies as well. And I think the Enterprise Centre will be allowing companies so that they don't have to disrupt their own lines, but they actually could come in and use some of this space to use as a testing ground for new technologies. And then showcasing the region's industrial strengths. And I think that is the critical piece that we need to be doing. So in terms of trying to bring it to my contribution to a conclusion, in a sense, having the two Midlands, Midwest in the region will escalate the level of activity, will allow us to make a significant contribution to the region's development, that economic, social benefits will be very significant. The region can build on its potential as a location of choice for Indigenous companies. And again, come back to that sticky region, the cost profile, the geographic location, and the collaborative business environment is very strong attraction for companies to come in. And if we can retain, again, more of our graduates in the region, it makes it much easier for Ken to be able to sell the Midlands as a region, because we will have the staff for them and the graduates with the skill set required for the companies that are coming into the region. And as we look into the future, it's vital that we take charge collectively and work together to leverage the Midlands. TUS Midlands Midwest want to be your partner of choice in enterprise, focusing on applied research, innovation, and enterprise support activities, and on addressing the needs of the regional and national industry by proactively collaborating with startups and established companies, and by providing a comprehensive range of knowledge-intensive services. This new university is very ambitious. We want to be very disruptive, and we want to challenge the status quo, but we also want to make sure that we are innovative and that we can deliver for the region, because we believe that if we can deliver for the region, the prosperity will grow and we all will be the winners in that regard. Again, I want to thank the Minister for his support. He's been very supportive with us over the last 9 months when we put in the application and when the report came back from the international panel, and he's been very helpful in advising and giving us good advice over the last 9 months. But I also want to thank the region again for their support, because their support was hugely helpful to us in terms of how we brought the TU to where it is today. And even as I speak, in the last number of weeks, They've also been involved in the whole branding project and assisting in driving the new brand that we will be creating for the launch of the TU on the 1st of October. So, Gurvila Moragath, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ciarán. I would now like to welcome the Minister for Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science, Simon Harris. Very welcome, Simon.
Thank you very much, Jerry, and thank you to Alan, the President of the Chamber, and thank you, Professor Ciarán Catháin, for your own leadership and dedication to this project, which I've seen firsthand in so many ways over the last number of months. Grateful to my colleague Peter Burke, Minister, for inviting me to be with you today, and indeed a welcome to all public representatives joining us and to all of the business community most particularly. I really appreciate the opportunity to just say a few brief words to you today, and I wanted to be here today because I genuinely believe what's about to happen in Athlone, what's about to happen in the Midlands Midwest region has the potential to be truly transformational. Truly transformational in terms of access to education, but also truly transformational in terms of regional development, in terms of foreign direct investment, and in terms of collaboration between the business community and the further and higher education sectors in the Midlands Midwest. So I think, whilst I'm obviously particularly concerned about this from an access to education point of view, I genuinely believe the creation of a technological university, the benefits go well beyond just access to education. It is, if we're serious about regional balance, regional development, and making sure we end this farce of all roads having to lead to Dublin or other big cities, and actually wanting people to be able to live in their community, stay in their community, get well-paid jobs in their community, start a family in their community. This is the key. And there's so much of an evidence base to support that as well. Very conscious when I talk to a Chamber of Commerce that it has been beyond a difficult period of time for so many of your members. I really want to acknowledge that. I want to assure you that government will remain by your side in terms of providing supports and being flexible and agile, and hopefully showing a bit of common sense in relation to those supports as we work our way through what is, I think, the end stage of this pandemic. I think we can look forward to a second half of the year with a bit more optimism. I know there's been a few bumps in the roads this week and the Delta variant is a concern, but even the vaccine changes today, I think, now show the agility we have to respond and respond quickly to get even more people vaccinated, because that's ultimately the way out of this. It's a race between vaccine and variant, and we need to get the jabs in the arms of everybody possible right across the age groups as quickly as possible as well. But what we do know about COVID is it has shone a very bright spotlight on the fact that, yes, the world is changing, and the pace of that change is only going to accelerate. There is absolutely no doubt our country has been so successful as an open island economy, in the European Union. We've crafted that economy through foreign direct investment and trade, and that has helped fuel our social and our cultural progress. It's helped shape us as a self-confident nation. But just because we've been successful in the past is no guarantee of success in the future, and nobody owes this country a living. We constantly have to be saying, what next? What can we do to future-proof our country? And I genuinely believe the battle for economic and social well-being is now going to be based on human ingenuity. It's going to be based on investing in talent, in brains, in people. It's going to be about human capital. And for that to really take hold in our country, the transformation of our higher education system equally needs to be accelerated, so that young people are prepared for the jobs of now and the future, but also so that people who are in employment today can continue to access lifelong learning in the region and continue to reskill, upskill and train as well. We need to empower and equip people in skills to find solutions to the big societal challenges we're facing and we continue to face, be that a pandemic, be it climate change, be it housing, be it how we age. Investing in people will be key to ensuring that economic and social well-being. So this morning, just to share a few thoughts with you on the Technological University of the Shannon, Midlands Midwest. Took a while to come up with the name, but the name is now decided. A key priority in our programme for government is the creation and the progression of technological universities. We passed the legislation back in 2018, and that legislation says that I, as Minister, must designate an appointment date, a date where the new university is established, and we must bring that about by legislative order. So I want to let you know this morning that I intend to bring a resolution to each houses of the Oireachtas next week, so that we'll be in a position to do that. And as the President of Athlone, Professor Catháin, has said, I intend to set the 1st of October 2021 as the appointed day for the establishment of your new technological university. This will be the third technological university in the state. It is a major milestone in the delivery of higher education, and it's a major milestone, I think, for the region of the Midlands and the Midwest. Of course, we're seeing the merging of Athlone and Limerick, but we're seeing much more than that, because by them coming together, they're going to create a new step change institution, one of sufficient size, capacity, and critical mass. And we have a very clear ambition now to try and establish interlinked higher education institutions of greater capacity and reach in the regions that can help deliver on key national strategic objectives. And technological universities are a key component of this strategic approach. It provides increased reach, international recognition, greater research capacity, FDI attraction, skills retention and creation, regional development, and an enhanced experience for students and staff as well. So from October, this new university will start its journey, a journey that will drive the agenda of access to higher education, excellence in teaching and learning, regional development, research-informed educational provision, and crucially, for the benefit of this conversation this morning, strengthened links with industry and the community. And that's a point I just want to briefly dwell on. There's a certain amount we can do from here in Dublin, we can do from government buildings, we can establish the university, we can invest in it, and we will. But the actual success of it will be down to you. It will need to be owned by the region. It will need to be steered by the region. It will involve the region coming together and saying, well, how do we want to use what has the potential to be a powerhouse for the benefit of people in Athlone, in Mullingar, in right throughout the Midlands and in the Midwest as well. And I really believe if you take this opportunity with both hands, there is so much potential for you to keep people in your region and to indeed to attract investment into your region as well. We won't be found wanting in walking that journey with you. We've already invested 65 million euro in the TU agenda. We've established a transformation fund, which is going to spend 90 million between now and 2023. So, and it's up to the TUs to keep on coming forward with your applications and your ideas to draw down that funding. And I've no doubt you won't be found wanting in that regard as well. This technological university is going to be unique. When you actually think of it like this, it's going to border almost half of Ireland's 26 counties. It's going to provide an unprecedented level of access to higher education, and it is going to create opportunities in areas that have previously been underserved or at risk of being left behind. So this is not just about changing the letterhead or changing the name. This is about expanding the footprint of access and really placing that vehicle for investment in regional development. It's going to be really a massive entity. You're going to have a student population of more than 14,000, a staff of approximately 1,200 across campuses in Athlone, Limerick, Clonmel, Ennis, and Thurles. It's going to be an institution of scale, but I think it will, and I think it would be important that it would, retain that familiarity of local campuses across the Midlands and across the Midwest. And I know obviously the one in Athlone is so dear to all of your hearts as well. So I do want to thank everybody who has worked so hard over 18 months to make this happen. I want to thank all of the staff, all of the students in Athlone. I want to thank the business community for their support. And I particularly want to thank Ciarán for his leadership as well. Very, very briefly, Jerry, I couldn't talk to a business community without mentioning apprenticeships, because whilst I want to make sure we invest in higher education, I also want to make sure we provide lots of flexible ways for people to be able to access skills and education in a way that works for them. And the apprenticeship model is underdeveloped in our country. We have a huge ability to do more in this regard, and to do more indeed through the new technological university as well. So we've just published a new apprenticeship action plan. When I talk about apprenticeships, nearly everybody starts thinking about the trades and the crafts, and they're important, and we need more people in those areas. But do people know that you can now do a PhD through an apprenticeship? You can get your master's through an apprenticeship. We have 61 apprenticeship programs in Ireland and 18 more planned, and we've just published this new action plan, and it intends to double the number of registered apprentices in Ireland every year. We currently recruit about 5,000 a year. We're getting that to 10,000 a year by 2025. We're going to increase the range of areas in which you can do an apprenticeship. And crucially, in terms of this discussion, we're going to make sure we make it easier for businesses to get involved. So from next year, we will provide every business with a core grant of around €3,000 per apprentice that you take on per year. So hopefully this will make apprenticeships even more attractive to businesses to take on. And we're also not going to just tell the business community to do it and lecture the business community. For the very first time, we're going to set a target for the public sector as well. I think it's embarrassing that the public sector in Ireland recruits about 80 apprentices a year. I mean, really, really quite a pathetically low number. There's no reason why every county council, government department, state agency can't have apprentices as well. So we're setting them a target of getting to 750 newly recruited apprentices each and every year. So really need your support with this agenda. Sometimes we've had too narrow and elitist a view of higher education in Ireland. We've got to make sure that we provide as many different pathways as possible for people. Learners like us all come in all different shapes and sizes from all different backgrounds. And I do hope the new apprenticeship route will be another chance to bring education and industry closer together as well. I've no doubt that the Chamber, being the voice of business in Athlone, we'll see the benefit in this, and hopefully we'll see the benefit of both the Apprenticeship Action Plan and the new Technological University as we try to drive economic recovery. Really want to thank you for the time this morning. Really need your support on this Technological University agenda. We won't be found wanting in investing. We won't be found wanting in providing support. And I know you won't be found wanting in making sure that you fully harness the potential of this new powerhouse for the Midlands, for the Midwest, and for Athlone specifically. So thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you very much, Minister. Our next speaker is Carmel Owens. Carmel is CEO of Athlone-based software and cloud specialist Sidero. Sidero was founded in 2013 and is home to one of Ireland's most accredited teams of software engineers and cloud experts. Currently employ 150 people. Carmel has more than 20 years experience in the IT sector, and she is a strong advocate of promoting regional investment as a viable option for Irish business. So I'd like to welcome Carmel. Carmel. Sorry, Carmel, we can't hear you.
This must be the story of the pandemic. Sorry about that. Can you see my screen okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So look, thank you very much for having me along this morning. And I'm delighted to be here to represent Sidero and also to thank Athlone Institute and tell you how excited we are about the Tooth Midlands University. Quick whistle-stop tour about who we are. We at Sidero is based in Athlone, founded in 2013. And today, actually, we have 150, we're closer to 160 software engineers, cloud specialists, and we are growing. So we would expect before the end of this year to have a jobs announcement. So a local success story founded by local founders and growing. Culturally diverse, we have people from all over the world, and we have a team of 21 different nationalities in Sidero. So a young, lively team working in the technology space. We deliver services to large organizations around the world, cloud and cloud native software development services, agile, you hear a lot of talk around that, and increasingly because of the cloud digitalization agenda, we're delivering application modernization services. So we have a really strong relationship with Athlone Chamber, and I'm proud to say with AIT and hopefully the new university going forward. And why won't my slides move forward? All right, I'm not sure why this is happening. Okay, I'll just talk. So yeah, to talk about our relationship, I guess, with AIT. It was mentioned earlier, this idea of a symbiotic relationship, and that is very much how I would see our relationship with AIT. The Springboard program was mentioned. Sidero have put 33 staff through the Springboard program over the last couple of years. We have a graduate recruitment program. We've spent 400,000 this year we will spend on graduate recruitment, and we've spent over €1 million since 2018 on our graduate recruitment. We work very closely with Dr. Enda Fallon and our HR department. hiring and retaining the best quality talent from AIT, and indeed some of our HR team actually lecture on some of the courses. Recently, we've been working with Anthony Cunningham on the research collaboration side, also very important to us. And I'm also very excited about the advanced technologies in manufacturing cluster, which is being launched. So we're working with Katrina around that. So yeah, absolutely, that word symbiotic is key to the relationship between Sidero and AIT. And of course, the demand for people is growing. We are growing, and I see Ken there, and it's fantastic, you know, the foreign direct investment. But the reality is that, you know, when a new company lands in the Midlands or, you know, on the Western Seaboard, typically they come after our staff. So a pipeline of quality resources and new graduates is so key to our growth, and I'm glad to see, you know, the investment in the TU, and I understand how that is going to help us going forward. We've undertaken some research of you know, Irish IT leaders recently, and interestingly, about 77% of them believe that more technology companies will locate outside Dublin following the COVID-19 pandemic. So, you know, not news to anyone on this, that the remote working has really, you know, proven its worth. So we think that it will be easier to see technology companies locate close to us, and, you know, I suppose, you know, the cluster and activity like that will help drive that going forward. Easier commute, less congestion, lower cost of living, all make it very attractive for us to get employees to the Midlands as well. So that's ideal. And the other thing then, when we conducted our survey, we had a section on digital skills, which we haven't released, but I thought I would share with you today. I thought might be interesting to this audience. So as I say, a survey of senior IT leaders. So we found that 78% of them believe that the ITs adequately teach IT skills, which is great, but only 60% for the universities. They also, the findings were also that over 3/4 of the candidates surveyed felt that schools were failing to equip students with digital skills at primary and secondary level. So I suppose that really underpins the importance of the TUs and the third level institutions. We found that 2/3 were saying that more could be done to encourage female students to take STEM courses. So diversity, really important in that digital space. And interestingly, the cost of the IT skills shortage was slightly less than 300,000 per company. So a substantial financial hit to not being able to access those skills. We heard there about graduate recruitment and the apprenticeship programs. 15% of them said that they were conducting a graduate recruitment program, and only 13% an apprenticeship program. And they also highlighted a gender gap in Irish business, thankfully not the case in Sidero. So I suppose, you know, overall what we see is we have fantastic collaboration with AIT. We're looking forward to much more as with the new university, and you know, as somebody who is a consumer of the graduates, I suppose, you know, we're as good as our people. I think that this is fantastic and really heralds new dawn, and we're delighted to be part of it, part of that ecosystem. So thank you very much. Jerry, I think I hand back to you now.
Yeah, thank you, Carmel. Thank you, Carmel. Our next speaker is Dr. Niall Seery. Niall is currently director of the Technological University Project at AIT, having served as Vice President of Academic Affairs and Register before taking this role. He has a PhD in engineering education. In 2010, Niall founded and continues to direct the Technology Education Research Group, where he is still active in research development and mentorship. He remains committed to advocating for technology and engineering education research and supporting the development of associated policy and practice. Niall, you are welcome.
Jerry, thanks very much, and thank you to the Chamber for organising this webinar. It was a pleasure to be invited to speak about what is a hugely transformational project, and one that has really taken on a whole life of its own. The President talked about the timeline for delivering the project, and it's incredible to think that in the past 2 years we have went from the concept of a new technological university to now having ministerial designation of the first university in the Midlands, which is an incredible position to be in. But really it's down to people, and people made this happen. Internally in the institutions, we had about 200 people working on this project over the last 18 months across 30 different working groups. And then obviously we had our stakeholder partnerships that were an integral part of convincing the international panel the need for a university in the Midlands to ensure the sustainable growth and lifestyle that will come with having access to higher education opportunities. I suppose on a very personal level, I grew up in the Midlands, and I grew up in the Midlands where I left the Midlands to go to university. And the distinct difference now is my kids are growing up in the Midlands where they will have a world-leading, world-class university on their doorstep. And that can't be underestimated. I think the world that they are growing up in now, with the significant challenges that the society is facing, also has the opportunity to really create opportunities of potential for people in the Midlands. And that is a hugely powerful idea, that our kids will grow up in the Midlands with a university on their doorstep. I suppose there's a couple of things that I'd like to start by acknowledging in the first instance. I'd like to congratulate Carmel on her appointment as CEO. So we look forward to working with you and continue to work with you in the new technological university. And I have to acknowledge that we expedited to some degree the process of establishing a university, but only on the basis that we had a very, very effective set of institutions going into this project. And I'd like to publicly thank Professor Ciarán Catháin for his leadership over the last 21 years in Athlone in the institution, developing a very comprehensive portfolio of provision, maintaining access routes, at the same time really pushing forward that research and innovation agenda. And I'd like to just acknowledge that the basis of that contribution is a significant part of the success of the technological university. So I suppose a little bit of, to talk a little bit about what the new university will look like. The President outlined the geography of it, so it will cover the Midlands, Midwest. It will touch on a significant geographical region, but it will also touch on a significant proportion of the national population. At the same time, we are Midlands and Midwest focused. We're also very, very ambitious to colour our provision and our knowledge creation in a national fora, but also in an international fora. So this university, although it will be located geographically in serving the region, it is about bringing all of the best parts of what we contribute as a university to that Midlands region and beyond. So I suppose the 6 campuses that will form part of the new university will house circa 14,000 students. Currently, we expect that to grow quite substantively, and the President mentioned some of the ambitious growth projections that we have nationally and internationally, and how we plan to house those. But just in some context, currently the new university has 250 international partnerships. So there are partnerships with industry, partnerships with other higher education institutions and other educational institutions around the world, which means that we've got a significant reach to, put Athlone and the Midlands and that region from the Midlands to the Midwest on the map as a significant global player in terms of knowledge creation and education. At a very high level, the university will be committed absolutely to the idea of practical and applied education, with a really strong focus on industry engagement and applied graduates. So that's our focus. Our focus will not change from our foundational mission, which is to be engaged with industry, but to be applied and job ready and practical. So we are really focusing on that work ready piece. And how we're doing that is through the partnership with industry, live projects, real problems, real tasks, and then obviously placements. The pathways and the access issue is one that the institutes are very, very good at the moment, and it's one that is central to the new technological university. And the minister mentioned apprenticeship education. And just to give you an example, on the Athlone campus of the new technological university, this year alone, we will almost double the amount of apprenticeship students on campus in this first year, with plans to grow that much more significantly, not only, as the minister said, in the area of craft and trade apprenticeships, but also in the areas of research focused activities like professional doctorates, professional masters, qualifications, and then undergraduate degree awards. But again, staying true to the fact that we are an applied institution where we deliver practical education. So we will maintain that access route of apprenticeship education right through to PhDs. The focus of the institution will again remain the level of agility that it has. And the President mentioned the springboard success that we've had over the last number of years. You know, engaging 700 local industries over that period of time is a really, really comprehensive network of engagement, and one that demonstrates a significant agility in the institution, because to be able to respond to that need and deliver programs that quickly means that we have designed an internal system to ensure that we are ahead of the game on one side, but can deliver then quickly and efficiently to meet the needs of industry. And then very effectively, we have integrated as part of our mission the idea of high TRL or high technological readiness research with applied and foundational research, so that we are staying very much ahead of the game in that knowledge creation space. And that's really important to us, because it is that area that gives and brings, on the one side, very, very talented job-ready graduates, but on the other side, a symbiotic relationship with industry that keeps beyond state-of-the-art thinking to the forefront of academic and economic advantage. So that's really where we want to position ourselves. I suppose very quickly, that's the kind of high-level concept of the university. The process that we went through is worth mentioning briefly. We submitted an application in November of last year. We met the international panel of February of this year, and the international panel went through a process of peer review, and there are people on the call that I'm very grateful for their participation in that engagement with the panel. The outcome of that was a recommendation that we were to be awarded title of university, and subsequently the minister designated us in May of this year. And what that really means is that we have been given the ultimate authority and autonomy to make decisions as a designated awarding body, which is a really, really powerful legislative instrument to allow us to respond even more comprehensively now to the needs of the region, both civic and social and economic. So as a designated awarding body, there are probably three main areas that I want to focus on quite briefly. One is the idea of regional growth and development and what that actually means from the university's perspective. And what it allows us to do is to align our activities to a much more, to a greater degree with the activities of the region, but also the cutting edge activities that are pushing the boundaries of competitive advantage. So to be able to generate and produce people who can challenge norms and create new knowledge for economic advantage is a really, really powerful instrument that we now have as a university. Because on the one side, you can attract and retain the highest level of talent, and you also can produce research, innovative and capable people. And again, the minister touched on this idea when he spoke about human ingenuity. You know, and human ingenuity mediated through higher education activities is a really, really strong position for the Midlands to develop. And with that said, the talent pool, you know, I agree absolutely with the President. The migration out of the Midlands and the risk of people not coming back to the Midlands is something that we need to stem very, very quickly in terms of this new university education, and being able to move, you know, within the hinterland of Athlone to a campus that now has university title, giving university awards in cutting edge applied activities educational activities. That's a real opportunity for people in the Midlands, and it's not just young people in the Midlands, because it's all people in the Midlands that can now access the upskilling, reskilling, and development activities that will form the core of what we do. And I suppose if I was to qualify the measure of what we do as a university, obviously we will be concerned about metrics, we'll be concerned about international profile, we'll be concerned about rankings, we'll be concerned about all of those things that universities are now concerned about. But I suppose one of the real positives for us in all of our discussions across all of our working groups was the idea of research capability and research capacity building. And it's something that now is set out in legislation as one of the functions of the technological university. And there are a number of ways in the university of looking at that in terms of the scholarship of what we do. What was really positive in all of our discussions was how we want to define impact in the future around research. And one of the core things that kept coming back from the working groups around research was job sustainability. So job creation and job sustainability as an impactful measure of how good we are at research. And that's a really important thing. So the scholarship around publications and the scholarship around the academic piece will be there, absolutely. But our real focus is how can we ensure that we can support job creation, but also sustain jobs in the Midlands by ensuring that we've the talent pipeline on one side, but we've also got the RI&E on the other side to make sure that our industries that partner with us are competitively advantaged. And I suppose with that said, there are a couple of practical things just to mention around that. You know, the pandemic has crystallized for us a lot of things, particularly around societal and human challenges and the things that we are all facing in the future. And with that said, we're very much focused on this idea of interdisciplinary research. And because our research is so focused on application and being practical, the capacity to deliver that connectivity between research agendas is one that we want to hold very close to the agenda of the new university. And the consortium already within AIT and LIT have engaged in a lot of, for example, climate action initiatives. And we have delivered a lot of comprehensive knowledge creation around renewable energies, agriculture, food. And a great example of that is the Empower Eco project, which is looking again at community initiatives and societal change around how we transition from one type of activity to the other. And again, the big focus on this is that we are a regional university that will start to address the imbalance between that spatial economic gaps that happen between regional and urban centres. And I'd like to just take a couple of minutes just to mention a huge initiative that we're involved in for the last year that has ran practically parallel to the university, the Technological University project, and that is our involvement in Run EU, which is the regional university network, where we have partnered with 7 other institutes, higher education institutes across Europe. We all have the same mission, which is applied education and high TRL research, and we all do it in areas that are regionally similar. We all sit outside of our regional centre, our big urban centres, and we are all trying to address regional imbalances. And what's really positive about that is that together with our new university, this European university designation that we've received gives us what the Minister alluded to, which is critical mass. And critical mass in higher education is important because that's where you can build your teams of experts. So we are a founding member of Run EU, which is the regional university network, which currently has circa 75,000 students, 8,000 staff, 53 faculties and schools, and 97 research centres and groups, which is a really powerful organisation now that is collectively trying to develop solutions to societal problems, but also provision that ensures that we have got the human ingenuity developed that we are going to need in the future. It also, brings with it a lot of opportunities for mobility, and certainly from our perspective, increased mobility is a real positive for the Midlands region, because that bi-directional associativity between our cultural experiences and our capacity to actually attract talent into the Midlands is a real positive of Run EU as well, which will become a much bigger agenda within the new technological university, and will allow us to improve our national and international competitiveness to a huge degree. We've already been quite successful in a number of significant projects through Run EU, which again is bringing much needed funding into the area for us to develop that knowledge creation agenda that is so important to us. And very quickly, I'll finish on these two significant initiatives that the TU and Run are involved in, is the development of future and advanced skills academies across Europe. And again, that is allowing us to predict future skills needs, at the same time develop programs for upskilling and reskilling. And the thinking around that at the moment is very much in the space of, digital credentials and very quick and significant accredited programs that allow people to upskill and reskill in a way that is commensurate with opportunities. And the second is European innovation hubs. And already the technological university, in partnership with Run, have a number of associate partners. And again, I'm sure there are people on the call that I know are partners within this Run project. And I would invite anybody who is interested in getting involved in those European innovation hubs to maybe make contact with us, because there is a real powerhouse of industry academic nexus happening within this new technological university that we are very, very excited about. And we have always, but the president speaks of two things: being ambitious and disruptive. And I think that we have now very firmly laid the foundations of an institution that will be both ambitious and disruptive. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Niall. I now hand you over to our Chamber President, Alan Shaw, who will chair the panel discussion.
Thanks very much, Jerry and Niall, indeed, for a very informative presentation there. And thanks to all our speakers. We're now moving on to our panel discussion. So I just want to remind everybody that there is an option there to input any questions that you may like for us to ask here on the panel discussion section. So feel free to input those there over the course of the next half an hour or so, okay? So our panel, just to introduce them again, we've Ken Whitelaw, Regional Manager, IDA. We've James Maloney, the Senior Regional Development Executive with Enterprise Ireland. And we also have John Geoghegan, President of Mullingar Chamber of Commerce. So you're all very welcome for this section. So if we, when I reflect on the presentations that we just received, the three letters that come to mind, FDI, and maybe if we go first of all to Ken Whitelaw, IDA Regional Manager, and foreign direct investment, is this a game changer for foreign direct investment in terms of the new technological university based in Athlone?
Alan, good question, yeah. And hello to everybody, yeah. So I think it certainly has the potential to be, Alan, yeah. I mean, everything we've seen so far over the last 2 years, and the amount of papers, presentations, thought leadership, the vision that Ciarán and Niall have for where this TU will lead us to over the coming 3, 5, 10 years, has the potential, I think, to significantly influence the perception, well, not just the perception, the reality of what FDI clients, both existing and new, will think of when they consider the wider Midlands region. Currently, we have 44 IDA companies across the 4 Midlands counties, supporting 6,300 jobs directly, an estimated 11,500 jobs indirectly. And I know both Ciarán and Niall, and even the Minister mentioned earlier on, the importance of engagement that is already taking place between AIT and industry. It's a significant factor in terms of how that existing client base perceives and works with a third level to both identify and develop talent and develop that talent pipeline in years to come. The word agility and the words agility and responsiveness were mentioned a couple of times. And I think kudos to Ciarán and his team, because at any time that there's been a need or a requirement, from my perspective, to connect the existing client base with anybody within AIT, that they're one with open arms. And it's really impressive to see that, but also from client companies or potential client companies coming to the region on what we call itineraries, when they're scoping out, I suppose, not just national locations around Ireland, but international locations, the ability to be able to, sit in front of the decision makers within AIT and to hear directly from them about their experiences and how they have helped work very closely with the existing multinational client base, but also obviously the indigenous client base here, to help them strive towards, being better, being more efficient, developing R&D, whatever it is, to make sure that their Irish sites are as sustainable, that the jobs here, to the point made earlier, are as sustainable as possible. And that's a key factor. And another point that was raised is the importance of access to talent. So although we're seen as a regional location, and a lot of companies do only want to be in a larger kind of city of scale, the bottom line is that Ireland is a very small country, and that the Midlands is only an hour away from an international airport. Despite that, the concerns that some companies have around access to talent and how quickly they can access that talent and scale to whatever number they want to scale to comes up quite often. So it is hugely beneficial from my perspective in terms of the future TU to be able to reference the 14,000 students and all of the R&D centres, and all of the existing industry partnerships that are already taking place and that are planned into the future. So it certainly will, and to round off the point, certainly will help me and the team here in terms of how we position the Midlands for future FDI.
Thanks very much. That's a comprehensive response there, Ken. And one of the things that's just been asked there by one of our attendees is the whole area of housing in Athlone, and in terms of attracting FDI. Is housing an issue at the moment for FDI in terms of building on that base that we have, that strong base we have in the Midland region, or is that something that is an issue for IDA?
It comes up occasionally, depending on the scale of the project that the client is looking at. But the bottom line is, again, the pipeline of new builds and the planning permissions that already exist both in Athlone and the various towns around the Midlands is very strong. So we can always refer to that if there are any concerns. But as well, if and when companies land here, they will be hiring people typically, but not always, but typically the people that have a base here already or are within a 40-60 minute commute time already. So they generally have a home or a base here. They might want to move closer eventually, but the pressure and the time sensitivities aren't typically there. So thankfully it's not an issue.
Yeah, and one final one then, Ken, in terms of the pipeline, the FDI pipeline, is there particular areas of graduate expertise that's being sought or that you would like to see further developed at the new technological university to try and, in terms of the attracting FDI to the region?
I think there already are existing clusters there in the general life science, the medtech and the pharma sectors, which is great to see. Technology centre is very strong, obviously, with Sidero, Nueda, and Ericsson in Athlone. And I think there is a growing, GBS, Global Business Services cluster as well. But I think that there is potential in terms of financial services. Carmel mentioned that, the positive benefits that the COVID-19 cloud has and the remote working opportunities, and I suppose the recognition from management teams within Dublin-based companies that they now don't need to have, bodies on site there in an expensive Dublin office 5 days a week, that a lot of them commute from the likes of Athlone, Mullingar, Tullamore, etc. and that they can, offer those employees flexibility, and that productivity is actually increasing rather than decreasing, and the staff retention will be higher, and the work-life balance will be higher, so that stickiness will help as well. That said, I go back to my point about the agility and responsiveness that is there within AIT already. It is to see, and I think their eyes and ears are open, from the various decision makers within AIT to industry already. What I might say, Alan, just to encourage anybody on the line, because I know there are a lot of people kind of, hearing about AIT and TU, and probably seeing a lot of faces here potentially for the first time and wondering who to connect with or how to connect. There is a quarterly, what we have called an AIT industry forum. We will now have to change the name slightly to TU/Stroke Industry Forum, but it's a very successful now digital platform, whereby representatives from AIT and anywhere between 50 and 100 representatives from industry come together on a quarterly basis for, it's only an hour and a half, and just rapid fire 10-minute updates from various stakeholders on what's happening across the region, both from an industry perspective and from an AIT perspective. So I would encourage anybody, I can put my contact details or share it later as well. And Michael Tobin, the Dean of Lifelong Learning within AIT, is driving that from AIT side. But it's not exclusive. I would encourage anybody, multinational and indigenous, anybody interested in finding out more about what's happening in the region, particularly from an education and an AIT perspective, to join that.
Great.
Sorry, long-winded answer, Alan.
Great. No, that's super. Yeah, because I know Dr. Niall Seery mentioned about the 250 partnerships that AIT have in throughout the country in all different areas, and obviously that's one of them, and one that's very prevalent for this afternoon or this morning's webinar. So thanks for highlighting that one. So if we just move on then maybe to John Geoghegan, Mullingar Chamber President. John, what does this development, the new technological university, mean for Mullingar, I suppose, and all of the industry in the area?
Yeah, no, thanks a million, Alan, for hosting this and setting it up. And I thought it was an outstanding presentation from all participants so far. Like, it really opens my eyes to things I wouldn't have been aware of. The sheer scale of what's going on in Athlone is incredible, and I think it's an amazing achievement by Ciarán and the crew down there. What they've done, when you mentioned the 60 people 25 years ago or 30 years ago down there to where they're at now, and this university status, we really welcome it and think it's fantastic. It's great for the region, and it kind of brings the heat map a little bit closer to Mullingar. So we'd like to look at this as an opportunity for Mullingar, and we'd love to engage certainly with all the stakeholders going forward. And the one opportunity I would see where we could look in closely is the likes of the Colin Barracks regeneration in Mullingar, where we have a large tract of land, and also the old barracks here, where perhaps there could be an education faculty considered there. And I know it's on the agenda there at the LDA and the advisory committee, which we also sit on as Mullingar Chamber. And I think, feeding back to Simon Harris's comments on this kind of reapproaching apprenticeships and training, I think that's somewhere where Mullingar could contribute to this. And I think we do benefit from what he's achieved down there, and it's absolutely fantastic. And we're open to any opportunity this could bring towards Mullingar. We certainly think with the likes of Ken and the IDA and EI, like, you can feel and see action coming this way. We have picked up a couple of opportunities in the last few years with the National Science Park here in the town, and with the IDA approving the upcoming development, hopefully, of the ATB at the Ardmore campus. So this is positive. Like, it's absolutely fantastic. I am delighted to see it. I think that's speaking for almost everybody in Mullingar.
Thanks, John. And John, just in terms of kind of access to education, university education in particular, do you think this is going to help retain a lot more talent in the region as a result of the new logical university staff?
I think it is, and I think that the university has finally got the stamp it deserves. Like, when you walk around the campus, the quality of facilities is top class. Like, if you didn't know where you were, you think you could be in UCD or somewhere, And I think that this certainly does help to underscore the local education economy and the retention of young people in the regions. And COVID-19 has brought all this logic around now, that you don't need to be based in Dublin or in an urban centre, you can actually live in the regions and hopefully educate yourself and train yourself in the likes of AIT and any one of the campuses between there and Limerick, as per the list set out, with the likes of Turles and stuff and Ennis, and just maybe longer term, if you're looking at extending the thing, Ciarán, perhaps you could look up at Mullingar and we could open up a little one up here.
Yeah, certainly. So, Alan, if I could come in there on that, I mean, certainly, I mean, we have an agreement with the County Council for space in Mullingar for the learning gate. But I suppose last year with the way COVID happened, sort of the learning gate probably never took off because we went online. But certainly it's very much there in our mind and in terms of the new technological university that we will be certainly looking at that, because we do believe that there's an opportunity to do more in Mullingar. As we do in Tullamore and indeed Roscommon. So it's certainly on our radar. And I think over the coming year, I suppose, when the university really establishes itself and we really get into that engagement, certainly we will be looking to expand the footprint of this new technological university. And like we would see Mullingar as being sort of one of those areas where we could look at it. It's a matter of how you do it. The Learning Gate for us has worked exceptionally well. Where it gives you a physical space on the campus, but a lot of it's done remote. But we will engage with you, and John, certainly we would be happy to have further discussion with you, and indeed with the County Council, and indeed with the Minister around that as well. Because we see this as a regional university, and I think even when Niall referred back to the EU university that we're part of, it is, we're all regional components. We're out of the major urban centres, or out of the capital cities, and that's designed particularly to do that. And I think in terms of our ambition and our mission really is to serve and to develop the region. And it's not just Athlone. While Athlone is the main campus, as is Moylish and Limerick will be one of the main campuses there, we will have to work and help and assist in other parts of the region that will need some support and development.
Brilliant. Thanks a million.
That's great. Thanks, John, for your contribution there. Thanks for coming on our panel discussion this morning, John. So we'll just move on then to, we have James Maloney on our panel as well. James Maloney is Senior Regional Development Executive with Enterprise Ireland. James, you have, when we just chatted briefly yesterday in terms of areas that, of particular interest, the whole area of climate change is something that we discussed, and the role that a technological university can play now in helping to drive forward change around that.
Yeah, it is. And I think the Midlands, it's a really exciting time. Everything is changing in the Midlands. It's a really exciting time for the next 10 years. I think a technological university really has a major role in kind of shaping the future of what the Midlands will look like as for potentially for new companies coming in, and for the existing companies that we're developing there already. And to stress the link of how we can work and grow together on that, for the courses and development, and what the ecosystem will look like. It's an exciting project with Empower Echo. We look at the whole sustainability needs and how important that is, not just for the companies in terms of their energy requirements, but for the customers and consumers of that to be aware of how this is being developed, or these prosumers as they're going in the region and abroad. And on the regional piece, we're looked at our 65% of the jobs Enterprise Ireland support are outside of Dublin. So we've well and truly got the message that there is life beyond the M50, and we all have to develop together. And I think Athlone will have a vital role to play there. If we look at it, we've about 238 jobs in the Midlands, or 238 companies. Sorry, be a little bit worried if we only had 238 jobs. But we're growing with that, and they have a need for talent too. And it's always the first questions you will get and you will ask. They're looking for a population base, and then they're looking at, well, who's going to work in the company if I develop here, if it's a second site or I want to grow. And I think that's really, really good that development is happening in Athlone and the other towns, which is really important to bring the Midlands region on as a whole. And Enterprise Ireland are very cognizant of that, and the role that we have to play in helping that, whether it's through future funds, liaison with the new university, and developing that ecosystem even further. So I think it's really, really good, exciting times for the Midlands. Sorry, Am I muted?
Which is there, I was on mute. Sorry, James, thanks for that. And do you feel that the Technological University now secures our access in the region to the talent pool that's necessary to see towns like, Athlone, Mullingar, Carmel, Longford, Ballinasloe, and so on, growing at industry level? Do you think that that's going to kind of really give it the shot in the arm that's needed to drive industry?
I think it will, and I think it's important that as we package the Midlands as a whole, that these towns are looked at, and we can see that in terms of remote working strategies. Our lifestyles have changed, so why not have industry not just in Athlone and in Mullingar, but the other towns, if the talent is there and it can be developed. If we're looking seriously at tackling the issue of climate change, I don't think all of us need to be in our cars every day. And I think Athlone kind of has looked at that, and through the Springboard courses and the outreach places in the various towns, and we've accelerated. One person has said to me, well, we've done, in COVID has done in 10 years, has got through what we should have been doing in 10 years in 1 year. So we've accelerated the whole development in remote working, regional strategies. Everything has had to change. And I don't think there's any going back from that now. And I think how we're going to go and how we're going to develop this region as a whole is very, very important. And I think the new Technological University is vital to that.
Yeah, that's great, James. So we've just a broad question here for if any of our panelists or speakers would like to take it on in relation to Athlone as a regional growth centre under the National Planning Framework, and Athlone's designation in that. This person, it's one of our members here, John McGrath. He believes that Athlone's designation has been key to supporting the TU realisation. And what other areas does the panel feel that the business community can support further growth and realising improvements in balanced regional development? Maybe John. John. Yeah.
If I could jump in, just like personally and professionally, like the regional planning framework and the regional economic spatial strategy is completely out of date now. Like 2 years into COVID, it's dead and buried in my view. And the original projections were absolutely outrageous in terms of their lack of ambition for towns like Mullingar and Athlone, where they're allocating 20,000 population uplift in the county, where we have a population of 89,000 people to transpire over an 11-year period. Like this is nowhere near where it needs to be, where you're on a train line, you're on a motorway, you've got superb infrastructure in terms of IT and civils and sewers. It's like, to my mind, like, the government needs to look at regional development post-COVID, and a town like Athlone and Mullingar should have an ambition to double its population over the next 25 years. And if you look at what's been achieved in AIT over the last 25 years as a footprint, and where it's at today, and where Athlone could be in the future, and where Mullingar might follow, like this is a huge potential for our country, a huge opportunity. And it could also deliver housing in the regions at prices to make sense, because there's an abundance of land in both towns, zoned and unzoned, and it could find its way into the system at reasonable numbers and be developed for housing at pricing that people can afford to live in and work in. Like, there's just so many strands of logic to this, but the total outrageous nonsense today's national spatial strategy has to be revisited, in my view.
John, thanks for the ambition. That's great to hear, and great to hear the energy. Ken, would you like to comment on the question there?
Yeah, no, thanks, Alan and John. Good question, and I know you were closely involved in the Athlone response at the time as well. I think it is really important that Athlone, has been designated as a regional growth centre. And I think we have yet to see how that will fully materialise over the coming years, out to 2040. Obviously, from an idea perspective, from how we pitch the area, from new clients coming in and looking at the Midlands or the various counties for the first time, they don't really have the time or the bandwidth typically on their first or second visit to understand the national planning framework and the importance of the regional growth centre. But suffice to say, where appropriate, we do mention it. To John's, I think, second part of that question, what can stakeholders do to help with the positioning of the area. I think there was so much that can be done, and I think there's so much potential probably amongst what are we here now, 72 participants. It was up at 84, but there's so much potential, I think, amongst the participants online today in terms of working together, using the combined brain power, using the assets, resources, etc., to figure out how we can work together to position the area for both Indigenous and multinational companies. And a big part of what I do is just, picking up all of the good news stories and all of the projects that have been done and planned, and putting that into a fancy looking PowerPoint presentation and making the pitch to potential FDI companies. So if there's any new projects, if there's anything that influences the positive placemaking, for example, and the stickiness of locations that Professor Ciarán mentioned, it all helps. So it's not just about the talent, it's not just about the third level provisions, it's not just about the infrastructure, it's about the quality of life, the placemaking. When multinationals are considering locating here and bringing in typically a senior management team from overseas to help set up the Irish entity, they want them to be happy, they want their families to be happy, they want to be able to access schools, etc. But I also want to be able to easily attract staff into the area and then easily retain those staff. So, I mean, there are so many things that we can collectively do to influence that value proposition. So I would encourage just people to, continue to collaborate, or if they haven't done it yet, just to, reach out and figure out how we can, continually work together to create and inform this vision for where we collectively want the Midlands to be over the next 5 or 10 years.
Alan, could I come in there, Alan, as well?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the key things that I would see is, that ability now that we have, that we can actually now sell the town and the region with a university town, and having the university as a driving force in it, that will, in my mind, if we market it properly, transform certainly Athlone and the Midlands and the broader hinterland around us. But it's how we use that. If you look at University Maynooth, which was there as a sort of pontifical university, when they start marketing Maynooth as a university town, it transformed sort of how it was perceived and the whole perception. And I think we have that opportunity now to really do that for our region. And certainly talking to quite a number of people over the last year on Zoom and all the rest of it, and people saying to me, well, I don't need now to go to Dublin. I don't need to go anywhere. I can do it all from at home. I can connect with anybody who I want. For us, even from an Athlone perspective, from AIT, I mean, we started this process. We used to meet in Burr between ourselves and Limerick. And then once the pandemic came, we haven't met in person in that 18 months. And yet we could still deliver the TU. We weren't affected by any of the thing. In fact, it probably was more efficient because we got on and we did the business in the hour rather than having to drive to Burr and back. So there are great, I think, opportunities for us really to do that. But if we start as a region, and I'm not just talking about Athlone here, but as the region to drive in a sense that we now have that university in the region, I think that will give us great kudos. And for Ken, for IDA itineraries coming in, I mean, on some of the occasions when they come in, we start by explaining what we are as an institute of technology. Now we won't have to start at that. We won't be explaining what we are. We're saying we are now the university. Everybody understands that university language around the world, and we'll be able to say what we want to do. And as I've said at the outset, we want to be disruptive and we want to be ambitious. But I think the region needs to be as disruptive and as ambitious as we want to be for it.
Thanks very much, Ciarán. And I think, folks, we're coming towards the end, so I'm going to we're going to leave the last word there to Ciarán, Professor Ciarán Catháin, and I want to just thank all of our panelists for this section of the webinar. And I'm now going to hand us all over to our CEO, Gerry McInerney, to close the webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Well, just very briefly, on behalf of Athlone Chamber, I would like to thank everyone for joining our webinar today. As Alan stated at the outset, it is being recorded, and we would put a copy of the recording on all our social media channels. I'd also like to thank all our panelists and speakers today for giving their time to this informative webinar, sharing all the exciting opportunities that exist for the region. And finally, I'd like to thank our President, Alan Shaw, and Alison McCormick in the office here for all their work in organising this successful webinar. So thanks very much to everyone.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thanks, man.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.